Integrating a podcast into regular class curriculum is a creative way to stimulate learning and motivate students to participate in classroom activities. However, as with any new technology associated with the Internet, podcasts have a set of security and safety guidelines that must be observed and followed according to government and school policies. A major safety issue to be aware of when podcasting is that some podcast subscriptions will ask for your personal information. It is important not to offer students private information, such as phone numbers, mailing addresses, school names, age, or bank account information. Students should only enter as much personal information as is approved in writing by their parents, and then only in accordance with school policies. In most cases, they should not enter any personal information at all. Another safety concern you should be aware of when selecting podcasts for students is how to protect your personal information. If you are visiting websites that offer podcasts for use, it is important to check the site's privacy policy. A privacy policy will tell you how that site will protect your personal information and whether or not the site will share your personal information with other parties. Many podcasts you will find on the Internet are not rated according to any age group or content level. Because of this, you will never really know if the content of a podcast is suitable for students until you actually listen to it. For this reason, it is extremely important to monitor all of the podcasts you plan to use before a student accesses them in order to filter the content and be assured that it is appropriate. Before playing or downloading podcasts for use in class, be sure to go over Internet safety rules with your students. They need to be reminded that they should never give out personal information or send pictures of themselves. If students are permitted to download, they should never download files without first getting permission, and then only with adult supervision. Let's review some of the safety issues we've discussed about podcasting so far. Answer this question and then click Next to continue with the lesson. In addition to Internet safety, you should also be aware of your school district's acceptable use policy. Most, if not all, school districts have policies that address the use of technologies in classroom learning, which includes podcasts. There are often separate policies written for teachers and students, and they must be signed prior to the start of the school year. An acceptable use policy typically outlines the rules pertaining to the use of technology, such as podcasting. For example, it may require certain criteria for entering personal information, for using the Internet under supervision of a teacher, or for downloading content that is related specifically to education and research. Your school's acceptable use policy may include additional guidelines specific to your school. If so, be sure that you are aware of the policies for both the district and the school. You also need to make sure that both your students and their parents are aware of the policies. You may find it helpful to cover a list of classroom rules with your students before using the Internet or podcasts. These rules should follow both government safety guidelines and your school's acceptable use policy. The list to the right is an example of what a classroom rule list may look like. Be sure that if you do make a classroom rule list, it doesn't contradict your school's rules and policies. As we've discussed, acceptable use policies provide guidelines to help protect your students when they are using technology such as podcasts or the Internet. Try answering this question about acceptable use, and then click Show Correct Answers to see if you were right. Another legal issue that you should be aware of when using podcasts is copyright law. Copyright laws protect content made available on the internet from being reproduced without permission. Be sure that the podcasts you use do not infringe upon copyright laws. You can do this by reviewing a website's copyright policy before you download any podcasts. You also need to follow copyright laws when you create your own podcasts. If you or your students create a podcast that references or reuses information that was written, performed, or spoken by someone else, then you must give the original author credit in your podcast, unless that content falls under the doctrine of fair use. Podcasting is an innovative way to incorporate information sharing into classroom learning. However, it is absolutely necessary to ensure that all safety and security issues are followed when integrating technologies into the classroom. Be sure to stay informed of all laws, policies, and guidelines as they are continually developed and revised. Here are some real-life examples of how the concepts discussed in this lesson could be used in a classroom, either as a teaching tool or an administrative aid.